I'm glad you touched on that because a lot of people shy away from technology or software or learning new systems because they say that, hey, I'm not computer savvy or I'm not tech savvy or I'm computer literate or whatever it may be. Did you face any of those challenges early on or?
I did. I faced a number of challenges early on, but I was able, fortunate, thank God, but I was able to overcome the majority of them. And early on, I did jump on and grab, the right software, which was Limo Anywhere.
Yeah.
And that enabled me. And I've always been a gamer,
Mm-hmm.
I treat it like the video game. If you can learn how to play a new game, each new game come out. I play in the real game in life, a business.
Yeah.
So Limo Anywhere was pretty, decent to learn. A new skill. It was pretty easy to adapt to.
Mm-hmm.
And then along with having the ability to call in and get assistance on the spot and dialed in. That enabled me to be able to, with the correct effort and if you put forth effort, sometimes, there are systems or tools that will get you there.
Yeah.
But you got to put forth the effort. Nothing is, ain't no free lunch.
Yeah, there definitely is not. And for a lot of people that shy away from it, they often will say, well, hey, I still need more bookings. I need more trips. I need more reservations. But they don't realize that with the right, as the term is used, tech stack or the right tools in place, you're pretty much going to hit that ceiling no matter what. Because ultimately, if even going back to the customer base or the clientele, it may not necessarily be Limo Anywhere. It could be a CRM. It could be it could be just essentially an email list. But the reality is, as you scale and grow your company with the right tools, it'll help you maintain it, but also grow it and see the growth based off of the data, right? The reporting of that data. How many new clients have we entered into the system this week or this month, right? Based off of those new clients, has a ticket gone up? Has a ticket gone down? And what can we respond to that with? But again, if you don't have that and you're just using WhatsApp or using text messages, everything gets lost in that shuffle. So when talking about your workflow, talk to me a little bit about the business and what does that look like on a day to day? Is that, let's talk a little bit about that day to day.
So on a day to day basis, workflow, the day can start, a typical day could start at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. First pickup could be a 4 a.m. Outbound flight going to the airport, 4 a.m. transfer. For an early morning flight, we could have, drivers coming in, and notifications that they're entering the garage. And then the phone will start ringing, checkups, calls, dispatch teams calling to verify driver information, ETAs, en routes, statuses, and from there, typical day from there could be, going to the office, checking out, the vehicles in the garage, reviewing, cleanliness of the vehicles, exterior and out, exterior, interior, just overall checking, making sure everything is, looking good. There's no accidents or, fender benders or, anything of that nature. And, overall making sure that, everything is in line. And from there, you got, checking emails, emails that may have came in overnight, emails that are coming in first thing in the morning, different, trips or, specific itineraries that may be coming up or, particular jobs that may have some heavy lifts to them. That can be, that can be most of the morning. And, from there, It's making sure that drivers are prepared for their trips, whether they're local or regional trips. Just verifying details and making sure that statuses are always going as planned along each route that each driver is on. So that is particularly, what a day's like. Completing all those trips from beginning to end. When a driver goes out until they come back in, we are still working. So, making sure that each driver's trip is that whole cycle is completed safely and smoothly as determined.
Gotcha. And it sounds like there are, that could be a part of the workflow, right? But there are things that are thrown at you throughout the day. Let's say, for instance, if the car does have some level of damage, or let's say the cleanliness is not there, or a client cancels. How are you traditionally handling that when that does happen? Is that handled by you? Do you have somebody within your operations team that handles that?
Well, those are good questions. So in my particular program, I handle most of the scheduling details, car washes, maintenance, any type of, repairs, oil changes, tires. I handle most of all of that stuff. My dispatch team handles the phone calls and dispatching. Of course, I support my dispatch team, but, their job is to handle phone calls, dispatching, all those different status checks, driver info. I handle all of my back end vehicle, driver, hiring, screening. There's a ton of different things I didn't mention that goes on in a particular day, administrative wise, in terms of, managing, finances, costs, bills, managing, different accounts, just in the, hiring, managing different, schedule, maintenance schedules. I mean, there's a, marketing, efforts, screening, social media posts, emails, tons of different things that are done, sales to increase business. It's an entire engine of stuff that's happening throughout the day. It's a major push going on all day long.
Yeah, and that's what it sounds like. Sounds like you wear a number of hats, not just the business owner, and a driver from time to time, but there's a number of intricacies that are a part of the business that you're also responsible for and that you have to handle. And I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed to understand, how do I ensure that these things get done? How do you manage those today? Is that do you use a project management tool? Do you use spreadsheet? Talk me through that process of just making sure when it comes to sales and marketing, maintenance, and things of that nature. How do you ensure that everything gets checked off of that to-do list for today?
As an entrepreneur, you figure those things out as you go. Mm-hmm. Along the way, I figured things out. As I mentioned, I got software early on, and so I start to utilize the different functions inside the software that were available. Now I currently, I pull together as much as I can in different places or with certain softwares. Mm-hmm. But I use a combination of different things, Excel, spreadsheets, of course, the different software tools. I utilize technology as much as possible in this day and age because it makes you bigger, faster, more organized, quicker responses, cleaner, look, cleaner, proposals. Just overall using, and that's why I urge people to use the technology available. Don't be stuck in the Stone Age. Yeah. With the old ways of doing business, and it's slowing down the entire process. We could click, and now all the information is right there in your computer, opposed to